Well, so far Serena's resisted every attempt to repair her, the latest problem being a broken cam cap bolt down inside the motor. And when we tried to get it out, we broke the easy out as well, and that's really hard metal down inside. So we've got to try and get that out and hopefully replace the bolt and, with a bit of luck, get the motor going. Like they say, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. I tried to drill into the broken bolt and easy out, but that only compounded the problem by breaking the drill bit and adding its tip to the conglomerate I was building down in the motor. The last thing to try was diamond tip drills, but I needed to send off for those. With the lockdown problems, the post's really slow. I knew I'd have to wait a couple of weeks until they arrived. But in the meantime, it being spring, there's plenty to do around this place. This old dead tree came down in a storm right across the driveway, so it's got to be cut up for firewood. But it's amazing how much life there is within an old dead tree. I felt a bit guilty about moving all these people out of their homes. I was asked way back about how the boxes were fitted to the roof. There are no racks or bars listed for Serena, so I had to adapt some. I started with a pair of ski bars that were made for a car with a gutter strip. Serena has a groove along the roof that originally held a rubber strip, I believe. That was pretty simple to bolt the rear bar into that. The front bar's attached above the door, and that meant adjusting the door rubber. I found part of an old shop display rack that was being thrown out, and I bolted that onto the right-hand side to hold the solar panel box and the spare tyre. Made a pretty good rack. The big box came with U-bolts and they simply bolted to the bars. All the nuts are sealed with superglue to stop them working loose. And after about 6,000 kilometres and some pretty rough roads, it's all still tight. The diamond drills at last arrived, and I'd love to show them in action, but unfortunately I accidentally wiped the clip. It's enough to say that they didn't work, and after wearing out 5 drill bits, I decided I need to think of another plan. While I was struggling with Serena, it was hard to focus on the job, as all around me about a dozen swifts were chasing the flies. Well, at least they kept the insects from bothering me. The next distraction was an almighty racket coming from behind the house. It sounded like Terry Pratchett's description of a camel, a donkey being chainsawed. Well, I had to investigate, of course. It turned out to be 3 guinea fowl. We have new neighbours and I suspect they belong to them. They stayed around about half an hour and then they wandered off again. I decided to call it a day with Serena and think about the problem. While I was inside making a cup of tea, I had a visitor who seemed to find the washing line a comfortable place to perch. This little fella's a striated pardalote. They sing all day in the trees around here to tell the females that they'd make a good husband, and they've selected a fine nesting site. Part of our veranda was damaged in a storm recently, and as we plan to replace it anyway this summer, we haven't fixed it properly. Our pardalote seized on this opportunity and he's found a comfortable niche. He kept this up for several days, mostly from the clothesline, until at last his efforts were rewarded and a female dropped in to check him out. Unfortunately, just as things were looking good, he spotted a competitor, another male, So he sallied forth to fight for the lady's hand, claw. Oh dear. The competitor turned out to be his own reflection in Serena's back window. He fought bravely, but to no avail. That pesky competitor just would not give in. After a while, she got bored and she flew away, while the battle went on. The next day he went back to singing, but to give him a better chance next time, I put an old sheet over Serena's back window. The problems I'm having with Serena are many, but compared to this partelote, I'm on easy street. This time his singing has brought some real competition, but being the incumbent and shouting loudly does the trick, and they decide to move back to the trees. If that wasn't enough, here come the neighbours. I've seen this fellow with a couple of females in tow, hanging around in the blackberries just down from here. Don't let this fella's good looks fool you. He's as pugnacious as a Glasgow drunk on a Saturday night, and he's thinking he'll take over the partelote's territory. The female wrens seemed to approve, and so she egged him on in the fight. It wasn't long till the partelote retreated to the power cable at the back of the house, where he shouted defiance at the blue wren. Meanwhile, the blue wren surveyed his new territory, but then the situation took a new twist when he found that he too had a competitor. Like the partelote, he took on his own reflection, this time in a shiny urn that was nearby. Unlike the partelote, each time he attacked, he emptied his bowels at the opponent, making him the original dirty fighter. A grey fantail dropped in to see what all the fuss was about. But he decided, I'll move on. While all this was going on, up above in the Blue Gum, the resident Corella pair were finding it all a bit of a bore. Corella's mate for life, so all this work to attract a mate finished long ago for them. That doesn't mean she allows him to take her for granted, so when he'd had enough of watching the goings-on below, he decided that it was time he got started for the year. So he wakes her up and casually says, "How about it then?" To which she replies, "Get out," and moves down the branch. He pretends he's not really interested and starts grooming, so she decides if he's going to clean himself up for this, well, perhaps she might do the same. He decides to try again, and this time she's a bit more encouraging, but she still won't make it easy. Eventually, she says, "Not here, the neighbours might see," and flies down to another branch. He bumps up against her until she stops moving, and then he starts to stroke her with his tail. This goes on for quite some time. At last she's ready and allows him to mount her. But this is no wham bam thank you ma'am, he takes his time. But then this only happens once a year. Finally they're done, and they fly off to a shadier spot to cool down and rest. In the meantime I've made a decision. There's no way I'm going to get the bolt remains out of the head, and the old bolt, it just won't tighten. So I've found a tech screw that's a little wider than the hole, and I've cut it to the length the hole will take, and we'll see how that goes. So the motor went back together, but although it tried to fire, it didn't go. As it's been standing for a long time, I eliminated one possibility by putting petrol in the tank. That should be enough to try it. It made no difference. When I was refitting the camshaft that drives the distributor, I couldn't decide how my markings should line up, and I reckoned I'm a cog out. That meant taking the rocker cover off again, and that gave me another shock. Without the motor even starting, the new oil has turned to latte, which probably means something is cracked down in the block. It seems this motor is history. So there it is. For the last 7 years, Serena's taken me thousands of kilometres around Australia. It's never been easy, but then what love affair ever is? Her problem started with a simple electronic fault, but her 25-year-old computer didn't pick it up until it was too late. But let's be fair, 25 years ago saw the birth of the first Pentiums, and most of us were still using 486s or earlier. How many of those still run? So, unless I win the lottery and can afford to convert her to electric, which would be really neat, for Serena and me, it's time to sit back and listen to the fat lady singing. Actually, she's not particularly fat, but what a singer.